Hello and welcome to my next Scratch tutorial. This one is going to teach you how to make the Charlie Charlie game in Scratch. So first of all, what is the Charlie Charlie game? In real life, where it comes from, it's a game like this. You basically get two pencils, place one down, put the other pencil on top of it and sort of spin it on top of it, and you place it on a sheet of paper where you have yes, no in multiple positions, and depending on where the pencil points, whichever one it's pointing to more gives you the answer to whatever question you've asked the game. And the idea is, in this game you're asking this character called like Charlie Charlie. In the Scratch version of the game, of course, it's more of the idea is more that you're asking the computer the question and you're going to get a random answer. So it's actually fairly easy to make in Scratch. There's not a ton of coding involved here. It's only a tiny little block of coding, but it teaches you some pretty interesting things. How to make something rotate in Scratch in a more like normal looking way, and also a little bit of randomization and stuff like that. So it's a pretty cool game. So the first thing we have to do to make it look like this is just to do our background. So our background is just going to be basically our sheet of paper. So it's just going to be a white square with no in the like top left corner and in the bottom right corner, and then yes in the top right and bottom left corners. And so that's all we do here. So we have our stage already. The default stage is just a white background, which we will keep. And then all we have to do is, it's usually on scripts, go into backdrops, and here we have it ready to go. So we'll use the line tool to basically create a kind of separator between them. So all we have to do is find roughly the midway point along the top of the box basically here. Using the line tool, we'll make it the line a little bit thick down the bottom, and then find the middle point, and then we just draw a line down like this. And then if you're wondering how to keep the line so straight like that, when you start drawing the line, hold down the shift key on the keyboard and it will keep the line straight, whether that be it drawing down or drawing across. So if we do it across, again we'll find the halfway point along the vertical this time, and we'll draw our line across, again holding down the shift key and then leaving it like that. And you see we have our pretty nicely drawn lines. Then it's just a matter of writing yes, no. And there are two ways you can do this. One is using the text tool here, where it allows you to just type basically the answers in, and then it comes in at that size, but when you click away you get the options to make it bigger. So just drag the corner to make it bigger. You can also, if you want to, just use the paintbrush and then just draw in the answer, but obviously it's sort of difficult to write very nicely like that. So you can choose either way to do it. I prefer to use the text because it makes the game look a bit nicer and it's a little easier to do. And we'll just finish it off with the no. And that's the backdrop done. Of course, you can choose to do yes, no in different colors. You can choose to have a different backdrop if you want to. It's entirely up to you. Again, that's just a case of, before you draw anything, use the fill tool and then click a different color and then click the background, and that will turn it like green or red or whatever you want. Similarly with the text tool, you can choose whatever color that you want. I just went with black and white because that's what the actual game ends up kind of looking more like. Now we actually get into, I suppose, the coding side of things. We have to use some sprites here because obviously you get rid of the initial Scratch the cat that's in the game. The positive thing with this game is that we don't actually have to make our own pencil sprite. The Scratch already has one. So we'll go choose sprite from library, and if we go into things and go down to P, because they're in alphabetical order, or find where the pencil is. There we go, over here. So we'll click the pencil, click OK, and then we have our pencil here. So what we're going to do here is just make it bigger. So that's just using this tool up here, grow, and then just clicking the pencil a couple of times until we have it as big as we want. So that looks about fine. And we'll just place it roughly in the middle. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to make it so that it's pointing more kind of straight. So to do that, all you do is go down to where the pencil sprite is down here, click the eye, and then direction here is where you do it. So you just grab this blue line here, and we're just going to drag it until we have it pointing straight up. So it's at roughly, for me at least, and I think it should be the same for you, minus 129 should get it pointing directly straight up, and then we'll just place it more nicely right on the middle. So there's the pencil where we want it, and this is going to be the bottom pencil, which actually is not going to have any code on it, so we can just leave that as it is. Then to get the second pencil, all we have to do is just right click on the first pencil and duplicate. That gives us an exact copy, and again we just place that right on top of this one, like it's kind of meant to be in a way. Or you can choose to set it up like this so that it starts kind of crossed. It depends on, of course, on what way you actually want the game to start. In this case, I suppose, so it looks a little bit clearer, we might actually do that. So we'll just have it kind of pointing sideways like this. Just, yeah, there, it's straight roughly, and we'll put it there. So we'll start it like that, and then all we want to do is start to add our code in. So the first thing that we need to do is actually add a way to basically have you type in a question to the computer so that it gets across that idea that you're asking the computer a question. So immediately we are going to have to add in a when the flag is clicked, because you sort of need that for nearly every program. And we're going to go to sensing here in blue, and it's going to be, we're going to use this bit of code here. Ask a question. In this case, the default one is what's your name. We're just going to get rid of that, so highlight it and get rid of it. So it's going to ask nothing and wait. And what that looks like when you start the game is that this box will come up, and you can choose to type in a question. Of course, for this game you want it to be a yes or no question. So, you know, you can ask it like, do you like games? Question mark. Tick. And the idea is like you sent that question into Charlie Charlie, and we're going to make it so that it spins and it's going to give us an answer. So the next thing that we have to do is when we ask the question and when we click the tick button or press enter, make it so that this pencil on top here spins and stops at a specific point. So we'll get into a little bit of detail here on how to actually make something spin. It's in motion, and it's these two. So the top one is spin clockwise, the other one is anti-clockwise. We'll just use the top one clockwise because that's the most common one. And here we need to get a little bit of an understanding for how Scratch actually makes things rotate. So we'll just create a little bit of an example here. So if you're not particularly familiar with how degrees work and how rotation actually works, a full circle, something rotating fully once, is 360 degrees. But if we put this in, what you'd almost expect it to do is that when we press space, we will see that top pencil move around. But what actually happens is that it all happens at the exact same time. So if we press space, notice how you can see the lights going on and off for the game, showing that it's acknowledging that we're pressing space. We are just not seeing it actually spin because it all happens at the same time. In a split second, the full rotation happens. So if we turn this into half of this number, so that what will happen here is if we have it rotate half of a full rotation, the top of the pencil should be facing the other way. So half of 360 is 180. And again, if we start the game again and press space, you can see here it does actually happen. But again, you notice it happened all at the same time. We never saw the pencil actually rotate clockwise. So we never saw the top of the pencil go like this and come around here. So how do you actually make it look like that? Because we want to replicate the idea of what an actual pencil would do spinning on top of another pencil. And this is where the effect that we're going to make is basically like this. So have it spin a very small amount of degrees, but a lot of times. So if we show you this, so 5 degrees looks like this. But if we press a space a lot of times, especially if we hold down space, it begins to rotate normally. So we can make this actually work pretty well by doing something a little bit different. So instead of us having to hold down space, we can put in a repeat, like so. So if we do that, so repeat 10 times turning 5 degrees, this is what happens. It actually creates the effect of it looking like it's actually moving properly. Then if you make it repeat even more times, so like 30, you can see it looks much, much better. Now all we have to do is kind of get the numbers right so that it will spin a good amount of times before stopping at a specific point. So we'll come back to that in a second, but now we know that the basic idea of what we need to do is do this. We'll get rid of this example when the space is pressed, and instead turn it into, once you ask the question, it then does the spin. So let's just say, do you like games? Question mark. And if we press the tick, it spins. But it's only going to keep doing this the exact same amount of times. It's always going to be 30 multiplied by 5 degrees, which means it's always going to spin 150 degrees. So it's not actually random. And this is where we need to add in a little bit more code to make it so that it always is random. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that the pencil always starts at a certain position. So again, we'll press I and go into the rotation here. So we always want it to be starting from here, like that. Which means we want it to be pointing in 140 degrees. And that's where we're going to use this one. And just at the very start of your program, put in point in direction and do 140. What this means is that anytime you restart the game, it'll basically put the pencil back into that position, so it always rotates from that point. So that's the key thing to note here. And as well as that, just to make absolutely sure, we will put in a this one here. Go to 318, which is the point that it's currently at. So that means it'll always go back to this exact position anytime we restart the game. And this is just to make it so that you don't have to drag all the parts back into position just to play the game again. It'll automatically do that just by stopping the game and restarting it. So now we have to add in basically the bit to finish off the game is to make it spin a lot of times and make it random. And that's where we're going to use this, pick random. And so all we want to do is basically replace the number that we chose here, 30, with a random number. And it's all here in green, pick random something to something. And all we have to do to get the game working properly is choose the right numbers here. So 1 to 10 is way too small. That means it will move out at least 5 degrees, which is barely anything, and at most 50 degrees, which is still not that much. Instead, we want this more to be along the lines of, let's say 100 to, let's say 300. This way, 100 times 5 is 500, which means it'll move 500 degrees, which is just over one full rotation. And then 300 times 5 is 1,500 degrees, which is it's close to 5 full rotations. So this will look a lot better. So let's stop the game, restart the game, and let's ask it the question this time. Do you like games? And we'll press tick, and you'll see it spins. It keeps spinning, and it stops. So the answer there is no. Then again, as we said, if we start the game again, it resets back into position and it wants us to ask another question. So we'll ask it the same one again. Do you like games? Question mark. And if we remember the first time we did it, it pointed to this no. So it pointed up in this section. If we do it this time, we'll see where it stops. So it actually went a good amount more that time and still pointed to no, but it pointed to a different no. So that's how we know that the game actually is giving us a random kind of idea of what it wants. So that's actually pretty good. So that means it's just choosing a random kind of number of degrees to stop rotating on. And that's the game. That's the full game. As you can see, we use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bits of code to make this game. And The only really complicated parts are just getting the numbers here in random right, as well as the number of degrees. Obviously you can change these, you can make these smaller, make these bigger if you wanted to rotate more times, and then if you want to change actually how quick it spins, because if you look, it's actually rotating fairly slowly in this case, all you have to do is change the number of degrees. So if we change this to, let's say, 10, this will basically make it spin twice as fast, but it also means that it will spin twice as many rotations because we've doubled the amount of degrees it's going to go through. So in that case, we need to account for that by lowering these to more like that, because we don't want to spin all day. So now it should spin twice as fast. You can see it's spinning much more quickly and still is stopping on a random point. So it stopped up here that time. This time it stopped over here. So it is actually properly random. So that is the game, basically. Of course, there are different things you can do. You can paint the pencil a different color if you absolutely want to, just by going in here, and you can draw on it. You can use the paint fill tool to, like, change the color of the pencil to like green or something like that if you want to. It's entirely up to you what you want to do. You can really jazz up the game, make it look really nice, but that is the core of how you actually go about doing it. It is very, very simple game to make, but it's actually pretty fun to just mess around with what the computer says to your yes/no questions. But yeah, that's been the tutorial. Thanks for watching, and bye.